Hey everyone, welcome to Brand Boutique Elite. My name is Farhana Cannon and I'm the founder of iMedia Exposure. And today we have a special guest, LV Randolph III. He has been helping businesses, he's been helping businesses for years with their business plan. He's worked with lots of different startups, helping them really create their pitch deck, their business plan, getting them all set up so that they can and really grow their businesses. I have the honor of working with him, and I'm so excited to share some really great tips with you guys today about how to really effectively create a business plan. We're going to go over some of the mistakes that are commonly made. And so, LV, tell us a little bit about yourself and how you got into this space.
Well, wow, that's a very good question. So I started out in this space as an entrepreneur. I created a business when I was in college, and I had some success with that business. And then from there, it led to other businesses being created. The first business was a real estate portal that allowed people to search for and rent apartments using the internet. And this is back in 1995, 96. I then went on to study real estate as a science, and then ended up starting another company in New York, and then another company in Boston, and another company on thus and so. So I came into this really from an organic perspective. It wasn't something that I studied. I didn't go to school. I don't have an MBA, so to speak. I learned along the way. So 100% of what I offer and the benefit to what I offer to my customers is experiential knowledge. So it's not about theoretically what's supposed to happen. It's what actually happens and what actually should happen.
And I think that sometimes, especially in the entrepreneurial world, it's about having the experience. It's about having gone and done that, gone through, okay, this works, this doesn't work, the consistent, case studies and working with other people. At this stage, I know that you've worked with lots and lots of people. Tell us a little bit about some of the industries that you've worked with and maybe some of the successes.
Well, we try to focus, or I try to focus on the beginning stage of business development or starting a business, right? So this is where an entrepreneur or a budding entrepreneur, somebody who wants to be an entrepreneur, effectively has their idea, right? So I work with people from that first point of ideation all the way through to small businesses that want to scale. And at this stage of business development, all businesses really look the same, unless they're connected to a research process like, research and development. You're creating the next wonder pill. It's an engineering feat or something like that. All businesses literally are the same. So what I do is I focus on that beginning stage, and in that I touch all industries, right? So whether you want to open up a gym or a restaurant, or you have an app idea, or you want to run you want to start the next Domino's Pizza, what have you, we can help with that. That's sort of our sweet spot there.
Cool. What would you say some of the common mistakes people have been making when they are in that startup phase?
Well, the first most common mistake is not starting, right? And what people will tend to do is they'll say, well, in order for me to start, I have to have this, I have to have this, I have to have this. The most ridiculous thing that I've ever heard from somebody who wanted to get into business or start their own business was that they needed to go back and spend $150,000 on a business degree in order to do that. My counter to all of that is just go and look at the Forbes top 100 list, right? They make a list of the richest people in the world, the most successful business people in the world. And then I want you to count how many of those people actually went to college at all. And if you look at the top group of those people, they all came into it through experiential knowledge. They all went out and did it, and they learned along the way, and they were successful. So that's the first mistake, is that people will delay getting started because they think they don't have all the information, and the information comes to you that way, right? Even if you have an MBA or you have specialized education and theoretical knowledge about business, you're still going to have to go through that period where you learn from experience, right? You learn from doing things the right way and doing things the wrong way. And you learn more from doing things the wrong way. The second mistake that I think that people make is they fail to plan. You know, having a good business plan is a cornerstone to being a successful entrepreneur. The world hands you a 90% chance to fail. The minute you have that idea in your head, the world says, okay, that's a great idea. Here's a 90% chance to fail, right? So if you don't plan for your success, then you're planning to fail. So having a great business plan is essential to bring that 90% chance to fail down to maybe 60% or 50%, right? So having a business plan is another mistake that people make.
I totally agree with you with that. Even in my business, I always say that you have to have your marketing plan, and your marketing plan is a part of your business plan. And when you don't have those things kind of clearly defined, people will be all over the place. And the thing is, you don't need to know how to create a business plan. You don't need to know how to create a marketing plan. There's people that can help. So, LV can definitely help you create that business plan. We can all be really great at our specific little niche, and we don't need to be great at everything. So just along your topic of, people feel like they need to go and get a business degree, they need an MBA to do this. And it's like, you don't need to know every little component of it. You can hire really great coaches and teams to help you get there. And, that's far less expensive than actual degrees. So you can hire experts that have the experience and will do it for you, so that you can really focus on what you're great at. Because quite frankly, there's a lot of things that a lot of us just aren't great at, we don't like to do. And the things that we don't like to do, it could be something very easy, but it's like the last thing on our to-do list, and we avoid it like the plague. And so it's just not even worth it. And so like those two things kind of go into order. I think that people feel like, oh, well, I don't know how to create that, so I'm just not going to do it. I'm going to focus on my thing that I do great. That restaurant owner is like, I'm really great at creating the food and the ambiance and putting together this.
Right.
But, and so you don't need to be great at everything. Like, I don't do a lot of things because I just don't want to. I don't have the expertise in it. So I hire coaches. And especially in that startup phase, like I spent thousands of dollars in the first 2 years of business on hiring the right people to help me to get to where I am right now. And without those people, I wouldn't have gotten to, now as quick as I did. And I wouldn't have picked up all this information along the way. Okay,
right. And so somebody like me and somebody like you, one of the things that as an entrepreneur, it's really important is to know that, right? Know what you're good at, know what you're not good at, and be ready to admit that, right? Be ready to admit it to yourself, right? Because if you think that you're going to be master of the universe and you're going to take over the world and you're going to be able to do everything, eventually what will happen is that, you'll run out of capacity, right? You shouldn't really be doing everything. I am horrible at marketing. I'm a good salesperson, I would say, right? From my sort of background and training, but I'm horrible at marketing myself, and I'm horrible at seeing the value of that marketing. And one of the ways for me to solve that problem was to work with Farhana, right? Was to work with you, and that is how I was able to solve that problem. And I can say that by making that one decision, well, first admitting to myself that it was something that I was not really good at, and I needed help, and asked for help, right? And then understanding exactly what that process is and hiring somebody who has that expertise, it put my business on a different track, right? And it allowed me to be more efficient in what I do. It allowed me to be more comfortable with putting myself out there, if you will, which is, for somebody, who's used to working behind the scenes and sort of working quietly, is a stretch. So there's definitely a benefit in one being able to do a self-assessment, understanding that this is something that I'm not good at, and then looking for the people who can help you to do that. And one point that you made before, people like me, people like you, cost a lot less than a MBA or some type of education. Now, I'm not saying that education is bad, and I'm not saying that you shouldn't get it. Everybody should read Shakespeare, but you don't need to read Shakespeare to know how to sell pizza, right? And the guys and the guys and gals that started Domino's Pizza, they a lot of them, literally the ones that are running those businesses, don't have any education, but they know how to run a business, and they know how to sell pizza, and that's what's important.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, there's definitely, I love like learning things, but you don't need to necessarily have that paper. So a lot of people just don't start because they're like, oh, I don't have this, I don't know how to do this. And there's all of that like risk in that scare factor of like,
yes,
we're not going to do this because we're afraid of that. But also too, if you set yourself up and create teams and really work with the right people that are going to like hold your hand through the process and get you there, then it eliminates some of that fear.
it does.
And then having your business plan. So what are some other kind of things that you see people are maybe doing incorrectly, or they aren't taking on when they're starting?
So the best way for me to answer that question is this: if you and I, let's say we decide we're going to go to California. All right, Farhana, let's go. We're going to California. What would we do to prepare for that trip, right? Are we just going to go hop in the car, get on, the Mass Pike and head west until we get to the Pacific Ocean? No. We're gonna sit down. We're gonna say, okay, how much gas do we need? How much is that going to cost? Is the car ready? Do we need it to be prepared? Do we have to, to have it serviced? Is it ready to make that 2,000, 3,000 mile trip? Right. We're going to go through a process of planning, and we're also going to have a map. Right. We're going to use a GPS system, or we're going to use something that's telling us where to go. Well, your business plan is exactly that. It's like your roadmap for your business. And what the business plan process does is it forces you to become the subject matter expert of your business. There's nothing about that trip to California that is left to question, right? Because it forced you to think about every single detail. Now, most entrepreneurs and most people, as you alluded to, it's a very visceral process. They don't like doing it. It's a lot of writing. It's very boring. It's a lot of thinking, and that kind of thing. But that's where we come in, right? We can do the thinking for you. We do the writing for you. We do all of that for you, and we present you with your roadmap, your business Bible, if you will, that allows you to navigate the changes in your business and anticipate problems before they happen, and also map the trajectory for your business toward success, as opposed to managing whether you'll be successful or not on a day-to-day basis.
Yeah, and that's so important, the benchmarks. So where, in the whole analogy, California, okay, so where are we going to stop off How far are we from that next point? How are we going to get to that next point? And those things are so important. Like, even in your marketing plan, people are like, oh, we're going to go on social media and we're going to get a ton of followers. And it's like, okay, that's great. But what are we going to do to get more exposure? Like, are we going to spend X amount on ad spends to get this amount of signups for this thing? So there's so many different components and actionable items that you can't have a goal of X without figuring out how you're going to actually get to X. You can't like hope and pray that some people are just going to find you and flock to you. And so having that plan and having those benchmarks is super important in that whole business plan. And then there is money involved in, it takes money to make money kind of thing. And so there always is expenses and tools you need, resources that you need, people to add on to your team, because quite frankly, as entrepreneurs, I think we can do everything.
Yeah.
But we need to sleep. So sleep is good. And sometimes I think we forget about the sleep thing.
Right. So yeah, I mean, I agree with that. And, the other things that you have to plan for are the things that may go wrong, right? So what happens on our journey if we get a flat tire? Right? What happens if the vehicle that we're in suffers a catastrophic failure, right? Or it overheats, or what happens if we get lost or we get diverted from our proposed path, right? Because there's construction or there's something else that happens, right? How do we navigate getting back on the right path and on the right road? So the business planning process really, really helps you to not just to navigate those things, but also it helps you to predict if they will happen, when they will happen, how they will happen, and what you will do when they happen.
Yeah, that's so important. And, there's a lot of like fear in creating this plan, and there's these different variables that you may not know how to project. And since you've worked with so many different kinds of companies, it's easy for you to do that. I wanted everyone that's listening in right now, I want you guys all to know that we are creating a virtual and live business planning workshop where you will be able to create your business plan and have that complete when you finish this workshop with us. You'll have your marketing plan sorted, and you'll have, your projections, your benchmarks, and different variables that you may not even have thought of. LV will get into like that whole thing with you and really go over that. And that's tangible information and valuable. And you need to plan, every quarter businesses have their plan for that quarter. So it's not like, LV said that he works with a lot of startups. And so you need this information and you need this sorted in the beginning, but it's also always a work in progress, because you're going to continuously need to project and plan for each quarter, because we want to be constantly growing. We don't want to like utilize the same plan over and over. Yes, of course, we're going to implement some of those same resources and some of those same steps, but also we need to think about what's new and how do we grow from where we're at. And
right.
So for businesses that you guys have already been started, you could, been in business for 20 years and you just want a fresh take on it. You want a, more creative part of your marketing plan. And things are evolving in our culture, in our society, in trends, all of that stuff. So if you guys are interested in joining us for that, make sure you can go to iMedia Exposure on our Instagram and send us a message. Or you can go to Cambridge Argilite on Instagram and send us a message there. And just let us know that you're interested in being a part of this workshop.
Yeah. And remember that the planning process, and you highlighted something where things change. The business environment changes, right? The business, so one really good example, before Apple, who was the major mobile phone provider? Or who was the largest mobile phone provider before Apple came along, right? BlackBerry, it was actually Motorola.
I remember Motorola.
So Motorola you know, didn't anticipate or couldn't anticipate that Apple was going to come along, right? But once Apple came along, it behooved them to make a plan on how to deal with the additional competition of a superior product, right? So a good business plan is also a living document. It's something that you can look at today and you can go back and make slight changes, and it will also give you a trajectory towards those things when they happen. So when new competition comes in, you have a pizza shop and somebody opens up a pizza shop right next door. What do, right? How do you deal with competition? How do you deal with changes in the market? How do you deal with global pandemics, right? How do you deal? And a lot of us have had to pivot. I know that you know, this thing sort of hit my businesses around March of 2020, and I can honestly say that I had a week of hell, right? Of not knowing what to do, not knowing what to anticipate for, because I'd never been through this before. But because I had a business plan and I had experience in starting businesses, it allowed me to identify adjacent markets. It allowed me to identify new opportunities, and it allowed me to position my businesses in a way that they're now growing exponentially as opposed to shrinking back, right? So the business planning process, having a great marketing plan, having a good team behind you is also something that's going to lead to that. You know, it would be interesting. I've heard a lot of stories about how people have dealt with COVID, right? And how it's affected their businesses, and how many industries are going to change. But if you have the right plan and you're diligent about where you want your business to go, and you understand that, then understanding how to factor in all of those changes and be successful through those changes in spite of them is something that is absolutely possible.
Yeah, for sure. There's, you know, a lot of people had to pivot, and it wasn't even necessarily like pivoting doesn't mean completely changing your business. You know, some people are like, oh, we're going to pivot into this. And I'm like, well, you're in a completely different industry. They're kind of partners and related, but now you're doing like a whole different thing. So this is completely another move, but it can simply just be create another product. You know, so I created another product. I had people coming to me asking me for X, Y, and Z. And I was like, okay, great. Let me see what I can create to fit the needs that you're having right now and work within that market. And it wasn't something that was far left. It was just adding a component to a product that I already had to meet the needs of the market and what was going on in the world at that time.
Right. And, you know, so one example of that, right, is so in one of my companies, it's a transportation company. We focused mostly on moving human beings from one side of the city to the other, right? COVID hit and stay in place orders came and people didn't go out anymore, right? So 95% of that business went away, right? Now, everything that we know about business and being in business says that you're done, right? You lose 95% of your business. If you can't get that business back, well, you know, that's it. It's time to think about what it means to close shop. But what we did was we focused on the core actions of what we were doing, which effectively was delivering things, right? So instead of us delivering humans, we immediately pivoted over and we transformed our fleet from moving humans from one side of the city to the other to delivering food and supplies to the humans that needed to stay in place, right? So because I had a business plan and because I anticipated and I understood what my market was and what my core business was, I was the subject matter expert in my business. When those things of adversity came, it made it easier for me to pivot. It made it much easier for me to pivot. Now, was it easy to do that? No. Was it stressful? Absolutely. That comes along with this lifestyle, right? It comes along with being an entrepreneur. You kind of have to get used to that. It's not going to be easy, and there's no place that you can come to, even with a business plan, where you kind of plateau and you get to coast, right? This idea that you can sort of outsource everything and sit back and do nothing. Yeah, that works, but it's very rare when that works, right? So being able to call upon my experience, having the business plan was what allowed me to go from losing 95% of my business to my business growing by 600%.
Yeah, I think that that's so important for people to know that it's not going to be something that you can let sit back. You know, if you get to the point where you can hire a team that is going to be in place and managing things and you're just overseeing it, that's, you know, that's like the ultimate goal in things. Or, you know, you also help position companies for them to sell as well. So tell us a little bit about that.
Well, I mean, so every company has a value, right? And there's a basis that we use in the in that industry to value a business. And what happens when you run a successful business for years? You've met all your goals. You're sort of where you want to be. What do? Do you just close the doors and then hop on your 80-foot catamaran and sail off into the sunset? No, I mean, there's a value in your business, and even in adverse situations, right? Where if your business is suffering from the effects of COVID, maybe you're a restaurant owner or something, and you've lost your business, or it's difficult for you. You plan for 35 seats, and all of your budgeting is based on 35 seats, and now you only have 15 seats, and you're trying to figure out how you're going to make this work, and you can't raise the price of the steak, and you can't turn people away. What do? Well, you can sell that business to somebody else. There's another entrepreneur out there always who's looking for an opportunity, and they may see your business as an opportunity. So what we do is we help guide people based on their goals, but we help guide people to the solution that's best for them. And in some cases, that may mean selling your business. And that's not a bad thing. It's actually not, because what that does is it frees you up from the day-to-day operations of the business. You get a nice, if you're lucky and you did well, you get a nice check, right? And then you can take that check and you can figure out what you want to do next, or you can sit and wait for the next opportunity or the next idea to come. So just because you're experiencing adversity, just because you're deciding to retire, doesn't mean, and you're getting out of business, does not mean that it's over, right? And there are solutions and things that you can do that will benefit you in the end.
I had somebody tell me once, always set your business up as if you were selling it, and don't get so attached to it that you can't create that you can't say, okay, hey, this is all set up and I can let go of this, or that you're so attached that you can't make changes in times of need. So people sometimes get so set in this way of being, and they're like, okay, this is what I've done for all of these years. And so now this thing happened, and so, I'm done. And I think that that's not beneficial. I think that like there's a portion of like really loving your business and wanting to succeed, but then there's another level of like attachment where you can't change, or you can't see that there is possibility to change. Like, how do you deal with people that may ask for your help that are like kind of in that space?
Right. So one of the things that I experienced early on is that exact thing, right? The first business I started, I was in love with that business. It was, you couldn't tell me anything about it. It was literally like I had a child, right? What I learned about having those kinds of feelings about a business, quite frankly, is that the business itself didn't love me back, right? It just didn't. It's not ever going to, right? It is there to it has a mission, it has a purpose, The system that we're in is a capitalist system, so everything is connected to making profits, right? And we measure success based on that. When you're in a situation where you're starting a business, one of the most important things is to be passionate about that business, but understand that the business is not going to love you back. And the business world can be unforgiving, right? It can be stressful to be in, but it can be unforgiving in a way that it can be a zero-sum game. So having a good plan, right, will help you navigate that. But also, the best advice I could give a new entrepreneur, even a business owner, is that be prepared to let it go. It's just a collection of ideas. If it's brick and mortar, then it's a building, it's a leased space, it's tables and chairs. None of those things are permanent, right? And what's permanent about the business is you. And all of that power comes from up here, right? So as long as you have this, then you're good. The business can come and go, right? As long as you have that next idea and you're able to move forward as an entrepreneur, then you'll be okay. But don't love the business. It won't love you back. It won't.
What are some of the biggest takeaways that you want our listeners to get from this session?
Well, I would say, hi, my name's LV. I'm a business development consultant. I'd like to help you, right? But what I would say is that if you're thinking that you want to start a business or you have an idea, go for it. Just go for it. Plan it out. Be intelligent about it, of course. Seek out those professionals and other people that are in the space that can advise you on the best way to go. There are many, many different platforms out there. There's tons of business coaches and people that can provide that information. But you also want to focus on who you're working with. You want to make sure that person has experiential knowledge, right? So they've been through what you're about to go through, and they can tell you what's going to happen, how it's going to happen, when it might happen, and what to do when it does happen. Right, that's very, very important. Having a theoretical point of view, I think, is good. Right, being able to use the fancy language and the jargon of the business world is also good. But when it comes down to it, you want somebody who's been there and knows what to do and is vested in your business. Right. So the way that we operate is as if we are running your business, as if it was our business, right? So you want somebody who's going to think that way. The other thing that I would say is in addition to seeking out help, in addition to really going for and making that business idea a reality, I think that the most important thing to understand is that it's statistically proven that everybody gets a 90% chance to fail, right? And failure is not failure. Failure is only failure. You only really fail when you fail to learn from the mistake or from adversity when it visits you, right? So, if you tried this before and it didn't work out, don't give up, right? If you're going through it and it seems impossible, don't give up. Keep going. The world says that you're not going to do it, right? And like me, there's many people like me that all somebody has to do is tell me no, and I'm going to make sure it happens, right? So just understand that failure is not failure. Failure is the fuel that entrepreneurs learn and use to learn how to be successful. And most of the most successful business people that I know here in Boston and around the country, every single one of them has had a story where they failed. And, some of them have failed miserably, right? They've lost everything. But because of what they learned from that failure, they were able to come back and get back everything and more. So that's what I would say. Go for it. Look for expert help. There's two great people here that can help you if you're ready to get into it. Recognize that your business is a passion. It's not your girlfriend or your boyfriend. Don't fall in love with it because it won't love you back. And plan for success. And recognize that if you fail, it's an opportunity for you to learn to do better in the future.
Awesome. So all of you that are watching live right now, if you could write a comment, tell us, any of your thoughts. If you're interested in learning more, just hit like on your Facebook right now. So I have a fun question for you. If you could be a superhero, what would your 2 superpowers be?
That's a good one. Well, okay, so I have sort of favorite superheroes, right? I think I'm going to change it around a little bit, and I'd say that I would want to be a Jedi Master.
Okay.
Right. I would want to be someone who is dedicated to right thing all the time. Right. And that seeks out the right thing all the time and defends the weak and defends the world against evil. Right. So that's what I would do. I would say that if I were a Jedi Master, my talent would be to be able to envision what's not there, that what people cannot see, and then turn that into a reality. And then if I bring it to sort of more of an entrepreneurial, make money, right? So I guess that would be my superpower, is really envisioning and seeing things that aren't there and being able to take a vision and actually turn it into something that works and that is sustainable.
Yeah, for sure. That's super interesting. I love this question because everyone gives such interesting answers for all of these different reasons. That's kind of like my fun date question, but I brought it onto the show. And so now I ask all of my speakers because it just gives a little bit of like more of a personal take on people and like what people are interested in. Because everyone always like, it's about what their really like core value is, like what they're interested in. And so I love that question.
Yeah.
Which was really kind of ironic is that when I asked you, we all have background noise. I'm sure you guys can hear the construction right now going out outside of my place. But when I asked you about your tips to leave the audience with, you said something about, just start your business. And in your back end, there was a fire truck going by or sirens. And it's so interesting because when people have an idea, there is that alarm that goes off in them that it's like, oh, I have this idea. And it's just so interesting how, you're like, just start it, just do it. And the alarm went off at the same time. And it's like, just interesting because that's like kind of the emotion that goes on with people. I have people that are like, okay, I have this idea. I want you to help with the marketing and all of this. And they're like, but I'm afraid. I'm afraid to do this. I'm afraid to do that. And, like that's super normal. But like, just go out there and like live your dreams. One of our core values is like helping people, achieve their dreams and create the lives that they love. Because, you can sit there in your job and be super miserable and be like, okay, this is what I'm going to do. Or you can take what you're passionate about and turn that into your life. And like, LV and I work nonstop. We're like, we're like always going. Yeah. But the thing is, like, we love our lives. We love what we do and we love helping people. And so it's fun for us. It's, this is like, it's not like a chore.
Don't tell anybody. It's fun. It's fun.
Well, I want to thank you so much for being on, and I want to thank you all for listening. Bye. Be sure to actually, follow this podcast, Brand Boutique Elite, on iTunes or Spotify or any of the platforms that you're using.